Chris, just give us an overview of outlook for your team.
Okay, big thing, we've got to replace 10 on defense, and we've got to replace 2 receivers, 3 offensive linemen, and one of our running backs. So we've got a lot of shoes to fill, and spring. I didn't think spring went as well as I wanted it to, and summer started off a little bit slow too. But we've sort of hit our stride. I feel a lot better about our July than I did about our May and our June. So anyway, we've got a long way to go to get those shoes filled, but we're starting to make strides.
10 on defense. I mean, I don't know if you can really totally answer this question, but how do you go about replacing 10 starters on defense?
It's tough. The thing last year, and we talk about it every year, and it's, I guess everybody faces this in 7A, it's so important to build depth. And although you're replacing starters, you hope that and we do, we've got some guys that have playing experience. But, there's a lot of difference in playing experience and being the starter. And so we do feel like we have built some depth. But it's, now you've got to fill those holes, plus try and build depth again. So that's why I didn't feel like our spring and our June went as well as it should. I didn't feel like our sense of urgency with what we've got in front of us was what it should have been. I felt like, we lost to Shays Valley in the spring jamboree, and so I thought when we came back in June that our guys would be hungry and sort of a wake-up call in our first practice back. I didn't feel like we had that. And so, but I do feel like, and I'm always honest with them, you as a coach, you have an eye for what it's supposed to look like, and you always give them feedback about, areas that we need to improve in. And so I feel like they have responded since then. But our big thing right now, when you say that, you've been around long enough and you hear, gosh, replacing 10 starters on defense. And I think about that. And a lot of times these guys, they've never heard that before. And so I don't know if there's an awareness of what we've got in front of us as far as the task.
Is Clark your lone?
Clark's the lone starter on defense. Now, Logan played quite a bit on defense, but Clark is the lone starter.
What's that been like, Clark?
It's been tough losing 10 guys, but I think we got a lot of guys coming back from last year that were younger guys last year. They've been working hard, and I think we're going to be just fine on defense. We got great coaches, too, that are going to get us ready to play week in and week out.
What's it like being the lone guy over there? I mean, did that require you to be a little more vocal or to try to be?
Yeah, and last year, having 10 seniors out there with me, I didn't really have to be as vocal. I was the guy in the middle, still calling everything out. But last year, I had 10 guys. They all knew what to do. This year, I've been telling people more what to do and when to do it.
Have you got a comfort level for that sort of thing yet?
A what?
A comfort level? Are you comfortable with that now?
Yes, sir. I've gotten really comfortable. All the guys were really close, so it's coming together real good.
And what do you think of the leadership that he's shown this far?
Well, I talk to anytime you lose 10, and Clark's done an unbelievable job leading by example. 133 tackles last year. I mean, that's just unbelievable. He's always done a great job, but you don't lead without your words. Your words, when you have to use words to put yourself out on a limb, and a lot of times you're vulnerable because you don't know if guys are going to follow you, how they're going to respond to your words. And so, that's been he's a sort of a quiet guy. And, he calls what the coaches tell him to call, but he's going to, all three of these guys, it's a great opportunity, in my opinion, for them to learn to assert themselves and, go ahead and put yourself in a situation where you got to back up your words with your actions, and you expect your teammates to respond to what you're telling them to do as well. The whole thing you hope, a guy comes into your program and is a sophomore, doesn't have a clue. As a junior, they're doing everything they're supposed to do, but the seniors should be like another set of coaches. And so that's not an easy thing to do, but we hope that that's where we get to.
Last year you guys got off to a really good start. Probably the second half of the season probably wasn't exactly what you would have liked. What you guys learned from that you can apply to this group?
Well, of course, we region is very difficult. We know that, and we knew going in that every single week it's going to require everything from you. You know, a lot of guys think it requires everything on the field, but, you know, we try to preach to our guys it requires you being dotting every I, crossing every T with your nutrition, with your sleep, and gaining every single advantage you can gain. I feel like that's what we did last year, you know, and I feel like we got as much out of our guys as we could get out of our guys. I think the demands a lot of times of the region and playing at the level that you've got to play every week, I think it's going to catch up with the best. I mean, the ninth week of the season, we were tied. There were 4 teams in our region tied for first place, and it came down to the very last week, and we ended up third. We beat Austin in the first round of the playoffs, and you know, I feel like I was really proud of what our players gave us in relationship to what they were capable of giving. I was extremely proud of how they took care of themselves off the field and played at their highest level every week. Now, you're playing against Talia Tagovailoa, and you're playing against some, you know, Robbie Ashford, and you're playing against some great players, and sometimes, you know, that catches up with you.
You mentioned nutrition and sleep. I've asked a couple other coaches this today, but there was a time when everybody that lifted all year round had an advantage. And it seemed like people who were playing 7-on-7, they got an advantage that some others didn't. Is there a trend right now that you see that can give you an advantage? Because that year-round lifting and playing 7-on-7, that's the floor now. It's not the ceiling.
Yeah, that's an incredible question, and I believe that's where football's going. Josh, you know, to me, for 40 years, everybody's been advancing on the hardware end of it, you know, and it's got where it's real cutting edge. I think where people now are starting to gain advantage is the software part, you know, your thoughts and your mental training for the game. You know, that's what separates us from everybody else, you know, as human beings. You know, we're conscious of what we're thinking, and as a football player, there's nothing more important than what's going on in between those ears. And so I think training players, number one is, you know, what information is important, what information is not important. Take it in as quick as you can, process as quick as you can, and react as quick as you can. And so I think that now, you know, with the great players, you can go into huddle now, and you can see how many hours they're putting into their film study. And but I think the great players now, it's the thing that makes them different now is the software, the thought process, the mental part of the game, and I think that's where we'll see the next 40 years. It's going to be unbelievable as far as the training of players in that area. To me,
do you guys do the training yourself, or do you bring in somebody from the outside to help you, or is it some sort of combination?
We talk to our guys all the time about it, and we're always trying to just we always try to teach them, you know, what you're supposed to be thinking and how you're supposed to be processing information. I really believe that that's one of the great teams that we've had, the best teams we've had. There's a high level of buy-in in that area. We start talking about, you know, on Wednesday, okay, the physical part's done. All right, now, what do we do to get ready for the game? The mental part, and first you do this, next you do this, next, and there's a huge buy-in, because to me, you know, if you're a 4.8 40 and you're reading things and processing it quicker than a guy that's a 4.5, that's a thing that can level the playing field. So I get the answer to your question is we're very much aware, coaches and players, of, you know, how we should train and how we should work our players out here.
For all of the three of you guys, I think the first question I asked the coach was, you know, give us the outlook that you have on your team. Same for you guys. Just what's the outlook? What are the expectations you guys have for your team?
I think last year's group left us. They showed us the right way to lead a team, and we're just trying to build off that. And we did lose a lot of people, and we're looking down at the younger grades to get some playmakers, and we're just trying to put out the best players we can get on the field.
Yeah, I definitely think we're going to have some younger guys step up this year. But these senior guys, we've grown up playing football together. We're a really close-knit group. We got good chemistry, and I think if we just focus every week on who we have in front of us, the coaches are going to give us a great game plan, and so we just need to execute, and I think we'll be successful.
Yeah, going on what they said, I think as a group we're really close, and that really last year, like, that's what made us, like, how good we were. We were really close. Everyone knew, like, what we were going to do, like, when we were on the field. You knew what the guy next to you was doing. You knew he had your back. So, I mean, we think we're gonna do big things this year.
Chris, aside from the fact that almost your entire defensive starters are different, what is the one thing about this team coming up this year that people are going to look at and say, ooh, that's different?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I always say, you know, I mean, you can look at these guys and you can tell from our stature, and we'll be physically imposing this year, and we'll probably just be able to draw a line in the sand and, do what we want. Not really. I will say this, this is probably this group of seniors, and this is a pretty good cross section. The gene pool at Mount Brook doesn't change a whole lot. We probably got more homecoming queens and beauty queens and people that were at the top of the pyramid, the cheerleader, stunts and all that stuff. We don't have many people that were the base or, roller derby queens or anything like that. But we've, this is pretty close to what the cross section normally is. But I'll say this about this group: it's one of the scrappiest groups, and I think that I call Clark the Seabiscuit of football. In that movie, it says, he quotes Shakespeare and he says, though he be small, he be a fighter, and so that's sort of like most of our players. And so I think the big thing that they'll see is this is one of the scrappiest groups that we've ever had. But not going to see a whole lot when we roll out there. This is a lot different from the stature.
I was waiting for you to say we're going to be in the shotgun and throw it 60 times a game. That's not really your brand of football, is it?
Well, I tell you, Josh, that's a good question too. We've had Morgan Ogilvie was there a few years ago, and then Edward Aldag, and we threw it all over the place. We sort of the first thing we do is we put who are the playmakers and what can they do, and we try not to fit a square peg in a round hole, and so Strother Gibbs and Sam and you got Crawford Golden, those guys, they're runners, and so we do what they can do and try not to force the issue. Now, I'll say this: I think we've gotten better, especially the last part of the summer in the throwing area, but we do what we can do.
Do you know who your quarterback's going to be yet?
He'll be Strother Gibbs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coach, tell us about your kicking game. Who's going to be kicking for you? Who's going to be doing returns?
Yeah.
What are you expecting out of that?
Well, Logan Brewer and Blake Pugh will be the returners, and both of these guys are maybe two of the most explosive guys, returners that we've had in our program in a long, long time. Years ago, we had Taylor Cox, who he tied the state record for kickoff returns for a touchdown. I think he had 6 or 7. His 8th one was called back, and since then, this may be the most explosive group that we've ever had. Atkins Roberts right now is handling our punting and our kicking chores, but we've got a couple of young guys that have a lot of promise, and so and he's a returning starter, which is a good thing. Thank goodness.
And Seth's asked some teams about we're fully entrenched in the age of social media. How have you adjusted your program, how you coach, and things that you do around that, and what are the pitfalls that you have advised your student athletes against?
Well, that's such a great question. Well, I don't think it's going away, and I don't think it's going to get dialed down. I think it's probably going to escalate. I think first of all, that's the biggest challenge is most social media is about me, and it's marketing me, and that's why it's selfies, and it's not Euphies, and it's not team-wees, it's selfies, and so it's all about me. Well, to me, that's counterintuitive to football. Football, everybody talks about you got to be willing to serve one another. I think football is sacrifice. I think football is a situation where you got to put other people in front of you, and that's not what social media is all about. Social media is about marketing me and putting my story out there instead of our story and instead of my teammate. I think we've had situations at Mount Brook where we've gone back and forth with another team in social media, and it gives them artillery for the game, emotional artillery, and I think that's a pitfall. But it can be a good thing too. It can be a good thing from the standpoint of there's a lot of things I've gotten off of social media from coaches and players that I have followed that, number one, has inspired me, that's enlightened me. And, we sit there and we worry about people hacking into our emails. When people hack into our mind all the time, I think you have to be a little bit more protective about who you're following, the stuff that you're taking in, because it can be toxic, it can be destructive, and we do talk about it. But that's an incredibly great.
The next question, I've been asking this all day, for the players, how do you all use social media to prepare for your games each week?
Well, we have many group chats, like offensive skill, defensive skill, and usually we'll text in there after practice. If we have a bad practice, we'll talk about what we need to fix, and if we have a good practice, we'll talk about how we need to keep that going. And then like huddle, we can watch practice right when we get home, and coaches can send us notes on there. So it's a great tool for us.
Yeah, a lot of times in those same group chats he was talking about, there's coaches in there, and we can ask questions, or they can tell us, schemes and stuff like that, and how we need to get better. And Huddle is just a great tool that we use.
Yeah, going off what they said, just we have our group chats, we talk in it all the time, and we're just.
Do you guys use social media to scout other teams to see what their weaknesses and strengths are and that kind of thing?
We get like opponent scout film, and we look at like their tendencies and stuff like that on Huddle. Stuff like that.
Do you know how many instant replay games you guys played?
How many we played this past year? We played 2. The biggest one was Austin. And
Will you guys have it at your home games this year?
we won't.
What do you think about it?
I think it's got its pluses and its minuses. The games that we were in last year, Josh, the technology has not caught up with it in high school, has not caught up with the concept of what it needs to do. We played Austin, and there was a call that they challenged, and it wouldn't work. There's 2 camera angles. I watch every Saturday and Sunday, and there's 10 camera angles. And so we're going to either slow the game down or stop the game. And I've heard of 2 situations last year where, calls were overturned. The one thing, too, is that I get concerned about some of the smaller schools and having to purchase pricey software, whereas you can take an iPad and we all film our games, and you can take it on an iPad with what we have with Huddle and look at that. But I think there's some pitfalls from that standpoint. The requirement that you have to use that technology as opposed to, look, we've got an end zone, look at this. And that.
Did you challenge anything last year?
I did not. I'll say this, our association is the BFOA, Birmingham Football Officials Association. And from playing games around the state, we've got the best. I mean, we've got SEC caliber officials. They are incredible. And I've got 100% confidence in them. And, they do an incredible job training. And they do an incredible job at admitting when there's a mistake and correcting it and taking measures. So I have the highest level of confidence in our officiating group. And so usually, and I have before, I've said, how sure are you about that call? And they'll say, take a look at it. If you have any questions, let me know. But I haven't challenged the call.